Stand by. Okay, you are live. Have a good meeting.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. We have a request before us for a conditional use in regards to 300 Market Street. So the meeting tonight is being done virtually through a Zoom meeting. In attendance at the meeting tonight are 10 people. Myself, Charles Packard, Phil Powell, Jeff Carhart, Candace Bozelli, Bill Putland, Shane Grimm, Volney Ford, Guyleen Fitzgerald, Clark Turner. Did I miss anybody in that list? Okay. Typically, we would ask for people to be sworn in. So I'll just state for the record at this time that each person who wishes to speak to the board, I hope you are in accordance or acceptance of being under oath for your testimony. That should be Ms. Fitzgerald, Mr. Turner, Mr. Ford, and Mr. Grimm. Are all four of you accommodating to being under oath?
Yes.
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 Mr. Grimm? I see
Yes.
Mr. Ford nodding. Thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald. Okay.
No, Mr. Ford said yes.
I saw you nodding. Okay.
Yeah.
The purpose of the hearing is as the council, and we have specific procedures that we operate under for the Board of Appeals. Secondly, met prior to the applicable property owners or notification to applicable property owners, advertising and posting of property. Mr. Grimm, has all that been taken care of?
Yes, sir, it has.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes, sir, it has.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me, Charlie? I think Charlie froze up.
Yeah, I think Charlie's locked up for a second. We can give him a second to reconnect. We'll wait for Charlie to return. All right, looks like Charlie dropped off, so we'll give him a second. I'll keep an eye on the queue. We'll get him reconnected. Stand by. And there's Charlie.
Hello?
We hear you, sir.
Yeah, I went completely blank there for a second. Jeff, are you there?
Yes, sir. We hear you.
Okay. Shane, did you have a or Mr. Ford, you wish to give your for the Planning Commission?
I'm sorry, I was muted, but I received all the, I'm sorry, we posted the property and we notified the adjacent property owners, Charlie.
Okay. Is Boney? Mr. Ford?
Yes, here I am. Can you hear me, Charlie?
Okay. Did you want to read your report into the record?
Yeah, and I'm getting some kind of background music or something, but everybody can hear me?
That may be the grandfather clock.
All right.
I'm
Planning
sorry.
Commission met on October 26, 2020 to hear the above referenced case in which the applicant seeks a conditional use approval to construct a new single-family dwelling on the lot known as 300 Market Street. The conditional use is required to comply with setback requirements as set forth in the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission found no adverse impact on the streetscape or nearby residential property owners and voted unanimously to recommend that the Board of Appeals grant this conditional use to include recommendations and suggested conditions set forth by the Planning Department in its staff report dated October 22nd, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Has all the members of the board been provided a copy of the staff report prepared by Mr. Grimm's office? Is there anyone
Yes,
who
I
did
did.
not get it?
Yes, I have.
I have two.
Yes,
Okay. For the convenience of the board, I would just note that Mr. Grimm has delineated those items that we would typically review to note or ascertain. Without objection, I would just enter for our record the Planning Department's staff report and would look for any comments or any questions anyone may have on those 22 related items. Is there any objection to providing that into the record?
I have none.
Okay, with no objection, I would suggest that we put those in. I personally have no questions about the report or those items. Mr. Grimm, I would open the floor to you if you have any comments regarding your staff report.
Yes, sir. I'll just give some brief comments on this. Jeff Thompson, if you could put that site plan up on the screen, that would be appreciated. So what we have here is a conditional use request for 300 Market Street. The property is zoned RB Residential Business District and is approximately 6,000 square feet or just over 1/10 of an acre. The property was previously subdivided approximately 2 years ago from the adjacent block building, which has now been converted into a dwelling. And the applicants have come forth now to demolish the existing dwelling and replace it with a new dwelling. The applicants have requested the conditional use because it allows more flexibility in the setbacks where there are no front yard or side yard setbacks and just a rear yard setback is required. The property is located in the downtown mixed use designation of the land use plan and is also in revitalization area number 3 of the land use plan. And it's also important to note that this property is in the National Register Historic District, and it is also in the Chesapeake Bay Critical Area. I bring up the point that it's in the National Register Historic District to bring your attention to the fact that the existing dwelling is a inventoried site in the Maryland Historic Trust database, but it does not have any specific protections on the property. And in speaking with the applicant, they did make every effort to try to preserve some or all of the structure, but due to deterioration from years of neglect, that's just not feasible. So they are offering to remove the dwelling and construct a new dwelling on that lot. As you've noted, Mr. Packard, I've gone through all of the items that are required to be reviewed for conditional use and given the department's opinion on those. I won't go through all of those, but I'll sum it up by saying that typically those items deal with generally the impact to the neighborhood and the community. And the department finds that there is no impact to the neighborhood. And in fact, the conditional use will allow the subject property to, or I'm sorry, the proposed dwelling to be similar in the streetscape and the closeness to the property line as other existing properties are along Fountain Street. The existing dwelling right now is non-conforming and is also partially over the property line and in the city right-of-way. The new proposed construction will not be within the right-of-way at all. And as you can see on the plan, all of that area in yellow is the existing dwelling. And you can see there's some porches that are in the right-of-way. And the area in red is the outline of the proposed dwelling. Again, I'd just like to note that the department has no objection to the request, and we recommend approval of the conditional use, subject to the applicant obtaining all applicable permits for the construction of the dwelling on Lot 1, and that the applicant shall submit a landscaping plan to address the mitigation requirements of the Chesapeake Bay critical area. And that landscaping plan needs to be submitted to the Department of Planning and approved prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. And that's all I have at this time. Thank you, Mr. Packard.
Mr. Grimm, one question that I have before we go further, as I recall, when we heard the appeal for the other piece of property, when they split this lot off, the board did establish a condition for, I think this was called Lot 1, the other was Lot 2, whatever, and that was that it would have a separate driveway. It looks to me, looking at the drawing, that it does propose a driveway. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. And also on the adjacent property, they did construct the other driveway that was required by the board. At that
Yeah, I've seen that many times. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Grimm?
None.
Okay, no questions. Ms. Fitzgerald, do you wish to speak, or is Mr. Turner going to speak for you?
Clark is.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. You can take that down unless Clark needs it.
Okay. No, actually, I'd like to have that up if we could.
Okay, as soon as I said it, I knew
Okay.
you asked about it.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You bring it back up for us.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for having this unusual Zoom meeting. We appreciate it so that it doesn't have to be delayed till COVID is behind us. But Shane did a wonderful job summing it up. So I'm going to try and be brief with this. I did give him this colored plan so that it becomes more obvious. And the red is the proposed house. You can see how that is moved over off of Fountain Street, further than the existing house, 5.5 feet off the property line, which is still, if you went up on Fountain Street, it's in line with the setbacks of the surrounding properties. And in the front, on the Market Street side, that is well back beyond the setback. In fact, we made it so that the driveway, the cars would be parked completely off of the city property. We allowed 18 feet there. So this really is an improvement to what's there. And just to understand, part of the theory in trying to keep it 5.5 feet off the line was the closer we get to Fountain Street, the more view potential there is looking down Fountain Street to the water. And that's one of the benefits of that lot. So we were trying to do this, and I think it accomplishes two things when we come in and rehab an existing house or tear down and rebuild an existing house. And that is that in this case, it was a multifamily rental. So we're changing our percentage of renter occupied to owner occupied houses that I think is positive. And the pride of home ownership tends to keep properties looking better. And the second thing is, every time someone rehabs a house or every time someone builds a new house in the town, it elevates the tax base. It makes other people feel better about spending money to improve their property. And overall, that has a very positive effect for the town and the future tax base. With that being said, I'm going to leave it that simple unless anybody has some questions.
What is the,
I have one question. Go ahead.
Certainly.
Somebody started to ask a question. Go ahead.
what will be the finished square footage living space in the house when it's completed?
The finished square footage is probably going to be in the 3,000 range.
Oh, okay, great.
Mr. Turner, the two arrows right directly in front of the proposed driveway, does that indicate it's a garage?
They're cars in the garage.
Okay, that's what I was hoping.
Yes.
So essentially you've got parking in the garage and off-street parking on the property
Yes,
itself.
we have 4 car parking, 2 in the garage, 2 in the parking place, completely off the city property.
Very good. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Turner?
Yes, with the development of this property, are you going to keep with the historic theme of the city since it's in the historic district?
Yes, we're keeping a very traditional looking
Somebody raise their hand up to make me
facade.
happy to speak up. If not,
Did you hear that?
I'm sorry,
Did you hear my answer?
I didn't hear a question.
There was a question that said, because it's in the historical area, what is the facade going to look like? And my answer was we were keeping a very traditional element facade with lots of the characteristics picked up from other architecture in the town.
Excellent.
Great.
Do you have any other comments? Press.
None.
If we don't have any further questions or statements, going to handle the discussion, but we will make a determination as far as discussing the issues. Does anybody wish to make any comments for, against, any questions? Maybe I'll go down the list. Bill, Mr. Putland?
None. I think it's an improvement. I support the project. Yeah, it looks good.
I appreciate that. Mr. Carhart?
I think it's a good improvement for the city. I'm all for it.
Thank you. Mrs. Baselli?
No objections.
Okay, and Mr. Powell?
No objections, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to move that we accept the recommendation as presented.
Okay, your motion is for us to grant the conditional use with the in the planning department's letter.
That's correct,
correct?
Mr. That's correct, Mr. Chairman. That's my motion.
Okay. Do we have any other comments on that? Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Do we have someone who wishes to second Mr. Powell's motion?
I'll second that.
Phil?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Bill. All right, we have a motion and a second to grant the conditional use with the stipulations that are attached to the recommendation from the city. Number one is that the applicant shall obtain all applicable permits for the construction of the dwelling, and the applicant shall submit landscaping plan to address the mitigation requirements of the Chesapeake Bay critical areas. I believe both of those requirements are required anyhow, but we will attach them to our granting of the conditional use. Is there any other questions on that before we vote? Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Powell says yes. Mr. Carhart?
Yes.
Ms. Bazzelli?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Putland?
Yes.
And the chairman votes yes. Thank you. Being 5 in the affirmative, none in the negative, the action of the board is to grant the conditional use. Ms. Fitzgerald or Mr. Clark, either one. Mr. Turner, do you have any questions as to the stipulations imposed?
No, I'm familiar with what the planning commission gave us.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations. Good luck with your project. And the Board of Appeals will stand adjourned.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank
Thank
you. Good night.
Thank you.
And
Good
Good
everybody,
night, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Have a good one.
Bye.
Great job, Jeff Thompson.
yes.